Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over and fully recapping the Ravens' 24-0 win over the Cincinnati Bengals on the road in Cincinnati. Very cold environment, one of the coldest games in Ravens history for what a Ravens team had to play in. One of the coldest games. It was like negative 7 or 8 degrees. Very, very cold environment in Cincinnati. It wasn't like super harsh weather, like it wasn't like snowing or a blizzard or anything, but with the wind chill and just the temperature in general, it did feel pretty cold. But the Ravens were able to go get a big 24-0 win over the Bengals. A crazy game. The beginning of the game was very odd what was going on. It was a very weird game overall. Let's just go over the box score. So going over the box score of this game, just going again right into it. It was a pretty straightforward game. Again, it was a 24-0 shutout over the Bengals. This is the first Ravens shutout since 2018. So it's been about 7 years since the last time the Ravens shut out an opponent. And not only did they shut out an opponent, but they shut out a divisional opponent in the Bengals. And a Bengals offense that has been pretty on fire ever since Joe Burrow came back. And Joe Burrow played one of the worst, if not his worst game of his NFL career today. The first thing that I'm going to say is a big shout out to the Baltimore Ravens defense. They were incredible in today's game. They really did hold it down. The Bengals did have quite a few total yards on the day, but the Ravens defense did a great job in just holding it down. And the Bengals had a lot of opportunities in this game. They had a lot more plays called in this game than the Ravens. They had more time of possession than the Ravens, but the Ravens were able to capitalize on their possessions. But the Bengals did have some long, drawn-out drives, but the Ravens defense was able to stand tall. And again, it was a shutout. Like, we literally didn't give up a single point. I was about to say run. We didn't give up any points in this game to, again, a very, very good Bengals offense. And the Ravens defense should be extremely proud of themselves. They have not played too great here over the past couple of weeks, like when we played against the Steelers last week and then against the Bengals the week before. They didn't really play great in those games, but they really held it down in today's game on the road in a very cold environment in Cincinnati. And this is the Ravens defense that we're going to need to see moving into the final 3 games of the regular season. And these last 3 games of the regular season are arguably 3 of the hardest games of the season in general. We're going to be at home for our final home game on Sunday Night Football next Sunday against New England Patriots, and then we're going to be on the road against the Packers, and then we're going to be on the road against the Steelers. So some very difficult games coming up. Obviously, the environment and the atmosphere in that Packers game is probably going to be super crazy, super cold. So they do have their work cut out for them moving forward. But the Ravens are sitting at 7-7 on the season. They're back to a 500 record, and depending on what happens in tomorrow's game for the Steelers, does depend on where the Ravens will end up on the AFC North standing chart. Because if the Steelers lose tomorrow to the Dolphins, and the Steelers are favored against the Dolphins, but again, the Steelers team is not like an automatic great team. Like, they can have their mishaps, and the Dolphins have been playing some good football here recently, so it is going to be in Monday Night Football, and I think I saw a stat that Mike Tomlin has never lost a game with the Steelers on Monday Night Football at home. So the Steelers' track record at home Monday Night Football is very good, but anything can end up happening. We'll see. But if the Dolphins can beat the Steelers tomorrow, then the Ravens will be back in first in the AFC North with 3 games remaining. But they still do control their own destiny. Even if the Steelers win tomorrow, they still do control their own destiny if they are able to win out. They have to win out these next 3 games. And the most difficult game of these next 3 is by far going to be the game against the Patriots this Sunday, or really like a week from today, around this time actually is where the game will be starting in like exactly 7 days. So that's going to be the hardest game remaining of the season for the Ravens, is that game against the Patriots. The Patriots are an incredible team. They did just lose a close game today to the Bills. They blew a 21-point lead in that game to the Bills, and they ended up losing. So they are coming off of a pretty heartbreaking loss. But they will be playing the Ravens in Baltimore next week, and that's going to be a huge game for the Ravens, because if they can win that game, then I think the confidence level in potentially winning out the final 2 does increase by a lot. But again, winning out is going to be very tough for the Ravens. They do have a very hard schedule. And the Steelers, I think their final 3 games are the Lions, the Browns, and the Ravens. So we'll see what ends up happening. Obviously we're going to keep track of every Steelers game as well, obviously rooting against them as much as we can. And they do play tomorrow, and hopefully the Dolphins can pull out a big win against the Steelers tomorrow. That would be great. But going over this Ravens game that happened today, because again, all we can really focus on and control is what happened in, the only thing that the Ravens can really focus on is themselves at this point. They can't really worry about what other teams are doing because, again, they still do control their own destiny if they are able to win out. So they just have to go out there and finish the job. So going over the game today, going over Lamar's stats, just looking at him on paper, what I will say is Lamar did play a lot better in this game. But another thing that I'm going to say about this game is that the offensive line is still absolute garbage for the Ravens, and Daniel Falele is still probably, in my opinion, the worst player in the entire National Football League, and the fact that he still is getting reps at a guard position is beyond me, and it's insane that we're not using Emory Jones and not giving him the opportunity because Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele are both awful at their job, and it's very clear and obvious over the past couple of weeks, especially over the past week. It's become very well known throughout the NFL how bad Daniel Falele is. NFL meme pages and other fan bases are starting to really catch along to how bad Daniel Falele is, which is great. It's great to see other people catching on to how awful of a football player he is. And again, you kind of have to hold these players accountable because they are in the National Football League, and this guy's 6'9", 6'8", 300 something pounds, and he is literally awful at his job. And the Ravens offensive line is still a complete mess. Lamar Jackson did get sacked 4 times in this game. There was one drive where he got sacked on back-to-back times. So this offensive line does need a lot of help. But again, it's too late for that. It's really too late to have any sort of help come in because we're heading into week 16 of the season now. We just played our week 15 game, and getting any sort of help is going to be impossible. So we're just going to have to hope that a magical miracle happens that all of a sudden the offensive line plays good. But as long as this offensive line is still there, the confidence level in the Ravens just kind of goes down by a lot. They did not play good at all today. The run game and the running attack was there. The Ravens did have first going over Lamar in his passing stats. He was 8 for 12 today, so Lamar only passed the ball 12 times today. And a big reason of that is because the Ravens did have an early 14-0 lead at halftime, and it was also a very cold environment, and again, Lamar Jackson is just not used to playing in weather that's that cold. And anytime a game is like that type of temperature, anytime a game is like that, it always kind of results in a run-heavy game. And that's kind of what it was for the Ravens. We had 24 rush attempts compared to our 12 pass attempts, so it really was 50% of our rushing attempts was our passing attempts in terms of the usage. So Lamar had 12 passes. We had 24 total rushes as a team. Lamar was 8 for 12, so he was pretty accurate in his passes. He was 8 for 12 for only 150 yards, had 2 passing touchdowns and an interception. But the interception, once again, was not Lamar Jackson's fault. And if you don't believe me, then you can go look it up yourself. I'm not trying to sit here and defend Lamar and glaze him or whatever, but, when it's not his fault, it's not his fault, and it's pretty obvious. But Lamar Jackson did have a pass in this game that he threw to Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers bobbled the ball, went up into the air, and then it was an interception. We've seen that before with the Keaton Mitchell interception. We've seen that with the Zay Flowers interception before. So we've seen it happen multiple times before where obviously Lamar gets credited for the interception, but it was a bobbled ball from Zay Flowers that went up into the air, and then it ended up being an interception on Lamar's part. So Lamar did have an interception. The Ravens did turn the ball over once. That was their only turnover. Them turning the ball over at all is just not really normal for the Ravens across the years. But this season we've been a super turnover-heavy team, I guess. So that's, I guess, just part of our identity. But the Ravens' defense did force 2 turnovers on the Bengals. Joe Burrow did throw 2 interceptions in this game to his 0 passing touchdowns, obviously, because the Bengals scored no points. So Going over to the rushing attack, Derrick Henry did have an 100-yard rushing game. He had 100 yards on the dot exactly. He had 11 carries for 100 rushing yards, averaging 9.1 yards per carry. And his longest run was 29 yards. He had like a 29-yard run, then like a 26-yard run in the same drive, like back-to-back plays. So Derrick Henry really got a chunk of his yardage from really one drive. Throughout most of the game, he was kind of just getting stopped. Again, he was getting stopped at the line of scrimmage for a majority of the game because this offensive line is garbage, and Derrick Henry just hasn't been able to like really get a rhythm of things like he was last season. But this year, the offensive line's just been a lot worse, and it's just played a lot worse. Even though it's the same names up there, it's just played a lot worse, and they've just had trouble really finding the open running lanes and getting those open running lanes in terms of like the line of scrimmage, and also obviously being able to protect Lamar Jackson. But Derrick Henry was able to get some big runs in this game later on in the fourth quarter, so those are big for him. Nice to see him get a nice 100-yard game. Obviously, Derrick Henry is still an incredible player, but you got to be able to give him some sort of running room, some sort of space to be able to make those plays down the field. So Derrick Henry, 100 rushing yards. Keaton Mitchell had 8 carries in this game for 66 rushing yards. And just from this, it's very obvious that the Ravens do want to incorporate Keaton Mitchell a lot more in their offense. We do want to give him carries, which is completely fine by me. He's an incredible running back. I think that he would be a very valuable asset, or potentially even an RB1 on some other teams if Derrick Henry obviously wasn't the RB1 for the Ravens. But Keaton Mitchell, he's incredible. He is an extremely fast player. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Jahmyr Gibbs. I understand how good Jahmyr Gibbs is as a player, but in terms of Keaton Mitchell's, his joltness, he's very quick, very twitchy type player, moves the ball very well, has extremely good acceleration. He has home run hitting power, or home run hitting speed, I should say. If he finds a small hole, he will be able to just run right through it and potentially get a ton of yards and potentially house call it, which we've seen him do before throughout his career, especially like before he did tear his ACL. But even after the ACL tear, he still looks really good. But Keaton Mitchell today had 8 carries for 66 yards, 8.3 yards per carry. He played great. Lamar Jackson had 2 carries for 26 yards. He had a 14-yard rush and then a 12-yard rush. So Lamar Jackson played good today in the running game. Only did run the ball twice, but he was able to get some good gains there. And then Tyler Huntley had -3 yards because he was the one at the end of the game kneeling the football in victory formation, which is always the best play in football. But I'm going over to the receiving. Again, there wasn't a lot of passing game work in this game. It was a big running game for Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell. But going over to the receivers, there was only 4 pass catchers that actually caught the football today. And Rashad Bateman was deemed inactive at the start of the game because of that ankle sprain. But Zay Flowers led the team in catches and yards. He had 3 catches for 68 receiving yards and a touchdown, and he also had a big 28-yard touchdown catch in this game. But Zay Flowers also did have a drop in the end zone, and he also did have that drop that led to the interception, like the bobbled drop that led to the interception. So Zay Flowers did have a couple of big drops in this game, but he also did have some big catches, including that touchdown grab for him. Rasheen Ali had 2 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. So Rasheen Ali ended up getting used as well. Didn't get used as a rusher, but we did use him in a running back screen, and he did get a big 30-yard running back screen play that ended up being a touchdown. Because again, the Bengals defense is not good, so we were able to kind of do what we wanted to do today. DeAndre Hopkins had a 32-yard catch in this game, which is really cool. Mark Andrews had 2 catches for 18 yards, and Keaton Mitchell had a target but didn't have a catch. Isaiah Likely didn't even get targeted in this game. I know a lot of people were playing him in fantasy purposes because of how well he played against the Bengals, but Isaiah Likely did not have a target in this game. Did not really play much either. Again, the Ravens' offense wasn't really on the field for that long. We had 24 rush plays and 12 pass plays compared to the Bengals' 39 pass plays and 29 rushing plays. So in terms of time of possession and total plays, it was pretty dominant on the Cincinnati end. But again, that just kind of goes to show even more how dominant the Ravens defense was this game, that they really were able to kind of stand their ground. And even with all the plays that the Bengals were running, the Ravens defense still didn't let up any points, which was incredible. They also forced those 2 turnovers for Joe Burrow, because he threw the 2 interceptions. But going over to the Baltimore Ravens defense, I want to shout out some big guys here. Roquan, and again, I do want to say real quick, this was Zach Orr's best game defensively he has called probably in his time as being defensive coordinator going back to last season. So over the past 2 years, this is probably by far the best defensive schematical game that he has called in his 2 years of being the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. Now, I will say this game right here, does it change my opinion on Zach Orr? Maybe, slightly, a little bit. It might change my opinion a little bit. I'm really interested in seeing how we're going to close out this season because we are going to be playing some pretty tough opponents here in the next 3 games or the last 3 games of the year. So I do want to see kind of how Zach Orr follows up this game. But obviously we've seen Zach Orr have a disaster class throughout his time as Ravens defensive coordinator, going back to the beginning of last season, going back to the beginning of this season as well, where we were like the worst team in NFL history defensively wise through the first 5 games of a season. So we've seen him obviously be horrible, but he really did step up in this game and really called a great game for the Ravens defense against an elite quarterback and an amazing offense. So Ravens defense played incredible. Shout out to Zach Orr. My opinion might have changed a little bit on him. I still am obviously leaning towards the firing of Zach Orr, but still getting a shutout obviously against this offense was really, really, really good. And I'm really interested to see how he's going to follow up this game for the last 3 games of the regular season. And I want to see how well we do and how well this defense fares against the Patriots and the Packers and the Steelers in the last game of the year. But going over to the defense, I want to shout out some big games here. Roquan Smith had 14 total tackles in this game. He had 8 solo tackles. Trent Simpson had a nice game, had 9 tackles. Alohi Gilman was defensive player of the day on defense, and a big majority of that had to do with the fact that he did get a pass deflection and he did have a touchdown on defense. Kyle Van Noy ended up getting the interception on Joe Burrow, and then Kyle Van Noy kind of passed it off to Alohi Gilman that was next to him, and Alohi Gilman ended up having a 95-yard return touchdown on after the interception by Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy obviously is not going to run 95 yards down the field and return it, so he passed it off to Alohi Gilman, who was able to beat everyone out on the offense and was able to get a 95-yard return touchdown from the interception. So shout out to Alohi Gilman. He played incredible. He's been playing incredible for the Ravens ever since we traded for him, because again, it's freed up Kyle Hamilton and let him just be the monster that he is. But Alohi Gilman had 8 total tackles. Nate Wiggins had a pass deflection. He had 8 total tackles as well. Kyle Hamilton did his thing like always. Malachi Starks had a big pass deflection in this game on 4th down. Travis Jones had a nice sack in this game, fresh off the extension as well. Travis Jones obviously did get extended for the Ravens that we talked about. Big extension for the Ravens, getting him back. He's one of the better D tackles in the NFL, one of the more underrated D tackles in the NFL, and Travis Jones, fresh off the extension, gets a sack, which is nice to see. And then Marlon Humphrey ended up getting the other interception of this game. Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Van Noy were the 2 guys who got the interception. So Marlon Humphrey interception, Kyle Van Noy interception. Obviously, Kyle Van Noy passed it off to Alohi Gilman for the touchdown. But Marlon Humphrey with a solid game, also had a pass deflection as well. But going over to the guys with sacks in this game, Travis Jones had a sack, Mike Green had a sack, and Tavius Robinson, who, welcome back Tavius Robinson. He has not played at all this season. Welcome back Tavius. He's back. He ends up getting his sack in the return. So Tavius Robinson gets a sack, Mike Green gets a sack, and Travis Jones gets a sack alongside the 2 interceptions from Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Van Noy. Shout out to them. The defense played incredible. Everyone did their part. It was a great schematical defensive game, and this Ravens defense really did play like they were supposed to. They played like the potential was there, and they played like they really were supposed to. We understand how incredible this defense is and how incredible they can be with the young talent on here and the veteran guys as well. And it was just a great game by the defense, and we heard some of the guys after the game in the post-game say that he really challenged the defense to kind of channel their inner self, and this defense played incredible, and hopefully they can keep being great. Hopefully they can keep playing incredible down the line, and obviously if they do make it into the postseason, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do over these last 3 games of the season. But again, when it comes to the last 3 games of the season, the Ravens' offensive line is still there, and the offensive struggles in terms of, the offensive line being a majority of it, but also the offensive struggles of just like some drops by receivers and just not everyone being on the same page in terms of the offensive line and the offense, because the offensive line is affecting Lamar Jackson, and it's also affecting the run game, which is obviously, it's your offense. It's the heart of your offense, and it's affecting it. So the offensive line being as bad as it is affecting a lot of things on the offense, and it's just not making the offense as efficient as it should be. We're also obviously having some drop problems and stuff as well, and just hoping that the offensive line can magically, hopefully, just play good, get better, and hopefully the running game can get back to being fully what it is, and the passing attack and the receivers can really start being who they really are. But going over to the total team stats, this is the last thing that we are going to be talking about. We're actually going to talk about one thing related to the Orioles, which is pretty exciting for all my baseball people out there. But going over and looking here at the total stuff, the Bengals did have more first downs. They had more passing first downs. They had 31 more total plays than the Ravens, and the fact that the Bengals had 31 more total plays than the Ravens, and the Ravens still won 24-0, again, just shows how incredible the defense played. The fact that the Bengals had 40 minutes of time of possession, like the Bengals had double our time of possession. They had 31 more total plays than us. They had more passing yards than us, not more rushing, but they had more passing yards than us. They were double our possession. They dominated time of possession, and the Ravens defense was still able to stand strong through all of that, through all the times that the Bengals had the ball. They had the ball for 40 minutes, and they scored 0 points. That is an incredible job by this defense. That is an incredible job of being aware, and that is obviously an incredible job of Zach Orr as well. So it just goes to show how incredible this defense played. But the Ravens did still have more total yards than the Bengals. They had 317 total yards compared to the Bengals' 298. Obviously, the Ravens had 189 rushing yards compared to the Bengals' 100. And then Bengals had more penalties, and obviously when it comes to the turnovers, the Ravens won the turnover battle 2-1, or really 1-2. So again, shout out to the Ravens defense. They were incredible today. The offense did its thing. The offense wasn't like incredible. They had 300 yards. They really scored 17 points on offense today because they had the pick six, which was obviously 7 of the 24 points, but 17 points today on offense, but they didn't really have the ball a lot. The Bengals were kind of dominating time of possession. The Ravens had a couple, again, we can literally just go and look here at the plays. The Ravens started off the game with back-to-back punts and an interception, so the start of the game was bad. Lamar Jackson eventually settled in. Then we had the big touchdown drive. Then we had 2 touchdown drives in a row. And then this was the touchdown drive. And then obviously we kicked a field goal, and then we had a punt. We pretty much had 4 scoring plays in a row. We only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We only had the ball 8 times this game. We really only had the ball 7 times in this game. Punt, interception on the first 3 drives, and then we had a touchdown drive, then another touchdown drive, then a field goal, and then a punt, and then obviously the pick six. So the scoring drives, obviously touchdown, field goal, and then a pick six. So not a lot of drives for the Ravens this game. The game kind of did go by pretty quick. It was a very cold game today. The Ravens did have to kind of settle into it early on, but then they had the back-to-back touchdown drives. Then they kicked a field goal. They got all the way down to like the 8-yard line, and once again they kind of just collapsed at the goal line again, which we've seen them do over and over again. The Ravens have to get better at scoring at the goal line and scoring in the red zone, because they're leaving a lot of points on the board, but they still were able to get a field goal out of it. Then obviously we punted on a pretty decent drive, and then the pick six kind of sealed the game for the Ravens. But overall, not a horrible game by the Ravens offense. Not a great game either. The start was pretty bad, but then they kind of settled into it, and then obviously the pick six ended it. But the Bengals had a lot of really long drives. Like the Bengals had an 8-minute drive, a 4-minute drive, a 3-minute drive, a 3-minute drive, a 4-minute drive, and then a 7-minute drive that ended in a pick six, and then a 5-minute drive that ended in a turnover on downs. And after all that time and stuff, we still gave up 0 points, which is crazy. Again, an incredible game by the Ravens defense. Shout out to them. They were incredible in this game. I don't know how many times I'm going to say the word incredible, but they were great. And for all of my baseball fans out there, we are going to be talking about the Orioles for a little bit, just like a minute or so. But I do want to say that Michael King, the free agent pitcher Michael King, incredible pitcher. He's amazing. We've talked about him multiple times before in terms of what starting pitchers we want to bring to Baltimore. We have talked about Michael King multiple times. Michael King, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, Tatsuya Mai. Those are like the top 4 guys remaining. And Michael King is apparently very close to making his decision on where he wants to go, and apparently he has narrowed down his decision or his free agency list to the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Orioles. So apparently those are the final 3 teams that he is deciding from, all from the American League East, which just goes to show how amazing the American League East is and how competitive it is. But Michael King is officially, the Orioles are officially a finalist for Michael King. We've heard that they've had a lot of interest in him. We've also heard they've had interest in Framber Valdez and Ranger Suarez and Tatsuya Mai a little bit as well. We don't really know much about the Tatsuya Mai, but we know that they had interest in Michael King and Framber Valdez. That's kind of like the 2 that we've really heard. And Michael King is officially... The Orioles are officially a finalist for Michael King. Red Sox, Yankees, Orioles, the 3 best teams, or not the 3 best teams, but 3 incredible teams in the American League East. Obviously, add on the Blue Jays as well. But Red Sox, Yankees, Orioles, the 3 teams that Michael King is deciding from. Now, some facts that are part of this is that Michael King was born in Massachusetts, so Boston and the Red Sox area is probably high on his list. He did used to play for the Yankees, so that is with that. And then with the Orioles, obviously the Orioles have been aggressive at signing players, so it's pretty much a bidding war, I guess, between Red Sox, Yankees, Orioles. And whether it's a bidding war or whether we all have like the same offer and he's just kind of picking based on best situation plus offer, hopefully the Orioles can win. And really, for the first time in my life, I can say that I am pretty confident that the Orioles might be able to land this plane and be able to get this deal done, because Michael King's an incredible pitcher. He would automatically become our ace. You have Michael King alongside Trevor Rogers, alongside Kyle Bradish. That is incredible, amazing front 3 for your starting pitching lineup. Plus, we could potentially make a trade for another starting pitcher for like Edward Cabrera, using someone like Kobe Mayo plus some of our other prospects. But the Orioles, I do just want to say this, and if Michael King does sign with the Orioles, I will make like a breaking news episode talking about Michael King signing with the Orioles. If it does happen, we will go over it in an episode. But I do want to say right now that the Orioles are one of the final teams that Michael King is deciding from. Again, he narrowed his free agency list to the Red Sox, Yankees, and Orioles. So he's pretty much deciding from those 3 teams, and the Orioles are in there. And again, I just want to say that I am so proud that the Orioles, and I'm so proud that Mike Elias is really being aggressive. Obviously, we saw him be aggressive for Pete Alonso. Obviously, we're just as aggressive in that starting pitching market, or maybe even more as well. And going out and signing one of the top starting pitchers available, would be great. And Michael King obviously is that guy. So the Orioles being able to land him would be great. But if we don't get Michael King, which who knows, if he ends up signing with the Orioles, it's obviously going to be amazing. But if he does go to the Red Sox or the Yankees, I do think that the Orioles, kind of the same thing with the Kyle Schwarber thing. Like, Kyle Schwarber didn't sign with the Orioles. Like, we really pushed it. We were the team that pushed the Phillies to sign him to that contract. And the Orioles were like runner-ups for Kyle Schwarber, and they were really aggressive. It's kind of the same thing here. Obviously, the Orioles are being really aggressive in getting Michael King here. And if they don't get Michael King, then very similar to the Kyle Schwarber and Pete Alonso thing, I do see that if we don't get Michael King, then we're going to be extra uber aggressive in getting like a Tatsuya Mai, or more importantly, maybe a Framber Valdez or Ranger Suarez. So I do think that if we don't get Michael King, then we're going to be extra aggressive in making sure that we lock up either a Ranger Suarez or a Framber Valdez, which we will hopefully see happen probably this week. Probably going to be some big moves that happen this week now that is like the week after winter meetings. Obviously, Michael King going to make his decision soon. This is going to help with the starting pitching market, so we could see the starting pitchers start to go, which obviously the Orioles are at the front of the line, front seat, front row in terms of all the starting pitchers, because starting pitching is what the Orioles truly need. Obviously, getting Pete Alonso is a big add, and we love it. But that, in a way, was kind of like the cherry on top to what the Orioles really needed to do this offseason, which was pitching. We have been hammering in pitching all offseason, talking about how this is the thing that they really need to go do. And getting Pete Alonso is incredible. I'm happy that they did it. It made that lineup incredible. But if they can go out here and be aggressive, just as they were in terms of getting Pete Alonso, if they can be that same type of aggressive in terms of starting pitching, which I think that they will be, then this team could really be complete going into the season. So we'll see what ends up happening. All the starting pitchers, other than Dylan Cease, are still out there that the Orioles are interested in. So again, we're just going to have to sit back and let Mike Elias cook. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify, make sure to click the link in the bio to check out the Twitter and the Instagram. I post all the time on Twitter. Any sort of updates I post on there. I live tweet throughout the Ravens and Orioles games whenever the Orioles games happen. So again, make sure to give the Twitter a follow. It's a lot of fun over there. Make sure to give the Instagram a follow as well. I appreciate you guys so much. Ravens got a big win today, moved to 7-7, and are on the path of winning out the rest of their games, their final 3 games, and potentially winning the division and making the playoffs. But obviously they're going to have to really play well, and again, there's no room for error, so they're really going to have to go out there and win their next 3 games, which is going to be hard, but their performance that they had today on defense really does give me some confidence there. So again, I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next one. You have a great day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.